In discussing the niche, I'm first going to tell you about the size of the niche. Then we're going to get into what exactly is an EUO. And lastly, I'm going to compare it to other specialties. So again, you can decide if this niche is right for you. Now, most people are familiar with litigation. So I'm going to use lawsuits as an example or use it as a comparison so that you understand the size of the EUO niche. As you know, litigation begins when someone runs to court and files a lawsuit. Now, in comparison, the EUO is 100 times the size of litigation. And some may argue that it may be 1,000 times that. And the reason being is that the EUO takes place pre-litigation. So for every lawsuit that is filed, there are thousands of claims or losses that happen that never make it to court. And this is where the EUO comes in. What most people don't know is that behind the grand majority of everything that you see is an insurance policy. Now, before you run off, because I said the word insurance or insurance policy, let me tell you a brief story. This is a story about Jackie. Jackie was my classmate. In fact, she was my moot court partner in law school. And I remember getting to law school one day and meeting her at what they call the Bricks at the University of Miami. And we were sitting there talking, and she had just returned from interviewing with a law firm. That was a time when everyone pretty much was looking for clerking jobs and trying to get experience. So I asked her, how did the interview go? And then she told me, it went great. And she encouraged me to apply because they had several clerking positions available. And I asked her, I said, well, what kind of firm are they? And she said to me, it's an insurance defense firm. Immediately, my reaction was, insurance? I want nothing to do with that. And really, that comment was out of complete ignorance because I didn't even know what an insurance defense firm was. But Jackie was very persistent. She said, you should really go check them out. It's a really nice firm. They have their own building. It's nicely set up. They have like 40 lawyers, and you should really submit your resume and don't let your ignorance blind you. Thank God that I listened to Jackie because I went ahead and submitted my resume, and that is the clerking job that I told you about early on in this training. Had I not overcome my own skepticism as it related to insurance companies, I would have never applied for the clerking position. I would have never gotten my first job. I would have never been introduced to the EUO, and you would not be listening to this training. The one thing you need to know, and I'll talk more about this in this training, is that while insurance companies have a bad perception in the eyes of the average consumer, they are amazing when it comes to being your client, as you'll learn in this training. For your information, there are 472,000 insurance companies in the US alone. So that doesn't account for insurance companies that are based outside of the US that do business in the US. The industry where the EUO lives is a $100 billion industry. And there are millions of yearly claims in the US alone. So why does this matter to you? Well, the EUO is at the heart of it all. There are millions of existing insurance policies which require the EUO. And there are thousands of new insurance policies issued every day. Pretty much everything that you see is insured, or there is an insurance policy behind it. Cars, houses, businesses, there are all kinds of insurance policies, and all of them contain this one little clause, which you're going to be learning about, known as the EUO clause. If you have a house, if you have a car, if you have an RV, if you have a racehorse, if you have anything that has been insured, go take a look at your policy, and you will see that the EUO is right in there. This means that there are thousands of repeat clients assigning EUOs all across the country as we speak. And later on in this training, I'll explain to you specifically why I call them repeat clients. So what is an EUO? Well, EUO stands for Examination Under Oath. It is a clause, but more importantly, is a contractual condition. The EUO helps obtain all necessary information and documentation to pay or deny claims and is an integral part of fighting fraud. And it's a very powerful right that the insurance company has. If there's non-compliance with the EUO demand, it could bar the complete insurance claim. So let me show you a sample EUO condition. If you go look at any policy of insurance that you have, whether it's on your car, your home, your boat, anything that you've ever insured, you're going to find a clause that reads something very similar to this. We may examine any insured under oath while not in the presence of any other insured and at such times as may be reasonably required about any matter relating to this insurance or the claim, including an insured's books and records. Now here's the kicker. The EUO was first recognized by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1884. Yes, that is not a typo. It's not 1984. It is 1884. That's when the U.S. Supreme Court in Claflin versus Commonwealth first recognized the EUO. And it stated that the purpose of the EUO is pretty straightforward. The object of the provisions requiring the assured to submit himself to an examination under oath, to enable the company to possess itself of all knowledge and information, enable it to decide upon its obligation, and protect it against false claims. So needless to say, the EUO has stood the test of time. It just happens that no one had made it a focus to turn it into a niche practice until we decided to do it. So how does the EUO niche compare to other niche practices? First, I'm going to tell you about the pros and cons of the niche. Then I'll discuss how it compares to other specialties. And lastly, I'll introduce you to what I call the magic model. There are more pros and cons when it comes to the EUO niche, but let me just discuss a few of them for the purpose of this training. Right now, as we sit here, 98% of all law students and lawyers don't know it exists or realize its full potential. Those that know about it don't truly get it and are going about it all wrong. So the problem is that you don't have too many role models to follow or learn from. So if you decide to do this on your own without our guidance, you're going to have to research everything and make sure you understand how it all works in real practice. As a specialist, you can make more while working less and have free time to still practice other specialties and pursue other passions. I know I've discussed this time and time again, but this is one of the huge pros of the EUO. It is a given that the clients prefer specialists. So if you decide to just dabble like many others, you won't succeed, or at least not to the level that you can as a specialist in EUOs. So you must have the right training to succeed. But don't worry, later on, I will share with you the training that you need to receive in order to succeed in the niche. So how does it compare to other specialties? Well, most other specialties can't compare, in my opinion. They require many steps to master, and we only do 5 things. This is part of the magic behind this. Since you're only focused on doing 5 things, then you can get really good at it in a very short period of time. Other specialties are expensive to get started and operate. You need an office, you need staff, and other high overhead. I know that when I first launched my first litigation practice, just the rent alone in downtown Miami was $15,000 a month. That didn't include the cost of all the staff that we needed in order to be able to run the office and litigate cases properly. With the EUOs, you can actually, if you wanted to, run them from your own office or with your existing staff. And later on in this training, I'll share with you exactly the resources that you need in order to get started and run your own EUO practice. Also, other niche specialties are saturated and consumer-based, so you don't get many referrals and spend lots of money and time marketing. And what I mean by that is, I remember when I was involved in real estate for some time, there's only so many times that a person will buy a house. And really, once they get through the closing, they're pretty much done with you. And if you're lucky, they'll tell a friend or two about you, and then you'll get those referrals. Well, as you'll learn in this niche, you're going to have corporate clients who are constantly getting claims on a daily basis, and they need to find someone to handle the work. That's where you get a lot of referrals with little marketing. They become repeat clients, and the market, as I'm showing you, is huge. And because it's untapped, there's very little competition. So you tend to have a high return on your investment. So what I call the EUO niche, the magic model. Well, I call it the magic model because in practice, like magic, on any given day, a new file assignment appears in your inbox. Earlier in this training, I talked to you about the guy who reached out to me out of the blue just because I knew how to conduct the EUOs and sent me that file. And here's the magic behind the niche. It's been now close to 13 years since that happened, and he still continues to be a client. But better yet, he's not just a client, he's actually become a dear friend and has opened the door to not just one file assignment here and there, but to 43 different companies. That's part of the magic of this niche. When I got started doing EUOs, I started with one client, one file. And that's just one person among thousands. You see, I mentioned that there are 472,000 insurance companies. Well, you need to realize that every company has hundreds, if not thousands of employees, many of which handle files that require EUOs. When I officially launched National EUO, that first month, I got 5 files, which provided a revenue totaling $22,000. Since then, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of clients. Till today, besides running National EUO and the Teleport technology and founding the EUO Academy, I still personally make, on average, over $20,000 a month from just conducting EUOs. And that's basically about 4 files per month. So yes, I still do this to this very day. So I'm not here preaching at you as to what you should do. In fact, this is still and continues to be the core focus of my practice. So there you have the fundamentals of this niche, which you need to know in order to decide if it's right for you. Next, I want to discuss with you the opportunities that are available so you can decide which way you want to go.